this film had a fun drinking game in part of it. When was the last time that either of you played a drinking game?
I guess last weekend.
Saturday.
Your
No,
lives
we do it all the time.
Your lives are way more fun than mine. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch or Pass. Today I'm joined by Leni Lauritsch, the co-writer and director, and Julia Franz Richter, the star of Rubikon, which is coming to theaters and on demand on July 1st, 2022. We're going to talk to them right now. While you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. Helps me out a lot. Thank you. So thanks so much for joining me. This is Leni Lauritsch and Julia Franz Richter of Rubikon, which is coming to theaters and on demand on July 1st, 2022. It is kind of a tense survival thriller at a space station while something else is happening very far away, but there's a lot happening inside the space station too. So it involves some very tough choices, some very interesting questions, and a very fun and kind of specialized cast of characters that were really great to get to know. So thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. So
thanks for having us.
Oh, of course. This is a really interesting film, and I'm really glad to talk to both of you. The first question is for Leni. So you co-wrote this and then directed. What was the inspiration for this? Did you come up with the idea? Did you and your co-writer come up with the idea? Like, how did you kind of get this story off the ground? There we go.
Okay. The weirdest thing is the initial idea came from a meme on 9gag, actually, on Reddit. And it was as
all great art does. It came from a meme.
Yeah, totally. Right? So there was just this question, like, if there was a natural catastrophe, what would happen to the ISS crew members right now, and what would they do? So I thought, like, interesting thing, dilemma. So but that was just the idea. But as a writer, you have to fill it now with a theme and with characters and everything. So I was very inspired, actually, to be honest, by a very depressive phase I had back then, because back then I've seen films like Finding Coral, where I knew, okay, so this the global warming thing is getting like out of hand, and we're killing species and stuff. So there was really like a time where I couldn't leave bed because I was crying all day long. So, but in the end, then I thought, like, okay, I could use this pain to create something new, and to have my commentary on this very subject. But I was also influenced by the refugee crisis back then. So it's a long time ago, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was really affecting me a lot. So.
Yeah, the story is just so far-fetched, an environmental disaster and corporations that care more about profits than people, and it's just I mean, it felt like a very kind of timely movie set in the future. And I imagine that a lot of the current themes just kind of like all fed into this overall disaster. And it sounds like that's kind of how this genesis was.
Yeah, but in the future, you have the possibility that you have like gravitation on this spaceship, and also you can dress up much cooler, as now.
Yeah, exactly. Infinite possibilities, same problems, though. That's kind of how I saw it.
Same here. Yeah, same here.
And so, Julia, how did you get involved in this? Your character was central to all of this. So how did you kind of get on board? Had you worked with Leni before? Or was this just something that came across your desk and you're like, this sounds perfect?
Yeah, I was going to the casting, I think, and I get involved, like, I get the first draft of the screenplay, and I really like it a lot because it's such an un-Austrian way of storytelling, because we have this huge tradition of Austrian art house, and sci-fi is definitely not like a big part of that. And I really liked the transformation of the character and how the character gets to, it's such a huge empowerment of this character, and how she gets to decide and for herself. And
yeah, and also, I like that you mentioned it was very un-Austrian, because I noticed in your background you have a lot of non-English films, and in this movie you are forced to kind of spend most of your time in speaking English. So other than kind of working on English, or maybe you already were fairly fluent in it, what else did you do to prepare for this role in this very different kind of medium than what you've done before?
I was I was meeting a guy who is from Detroit, and he was a really, really cool illustrator. And I know him from friends of mine, and he has the coolest English I've ever heard. And so I felt like, okay, I want to prepare with this guy because he's such a, he has such a good way of storytelling, and I spent a lot of time with him. And luckily, he was also in the army in the US. And so he told me a lot of stories about his time, which was also, which was very influential for me for the character then, because I think Austrian army and army in the US is huge difference.
It's a little different.
Might I just add, but Julia still had to go to the Austrian military and to
Yes.
a lot of some training there too, so that she really knew what she was, playing.
Yeah.
As a soldier. Yeah.
I met the female soldier as well, and
A lot of times actually.
yes, and she was really cool and telling like, it was really cool because I think if you're looking at a role like this, there are so many stereotypes which you feel like, okay, I could easily go into this stereotypy way of acting or this strong female lead. And I really, when I met this soldier, I was like, okay, she's so different than how I imagine a female soldier.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you definitely, there's a mindset that you have to get into, kind of be the military person, but in the military, as in all large organizations, there's so many different facets and so many different people that you have all sorts of views. But I liked how your character specifically felt like she had the military mindset, even though she had some internal struggles that occurred throughout the film. Like there's definitely a sense of kind of like the mission is important and you have your duty, and like you can't question that until maybe you can.
That's actually a reason why I chose Julia, because she brought such a rich inner life with her, that you didn't even have to spell it out. It was really just there, and you could just feel it was vibrant through the camera. So the moment I casted her, I was like, okay, she's it. That's exactly her.
That's perfect. And so other than the stars, because there was a lot of fun, getting to know you in the movie. What I also really loved is the set. The set was pretty elaborate and looked kind of, very realistic. Not what I expected from an indie space film. So, where did that, did you build it yourself? Did you use another,
I just have that at home,
Yes. I sleep in a spaceship, right? That sounds awesome. You had a lot of quarantine time.
We were really, really lucky because I worked together with Johannes Mücker. He is our production designer. And, he has a lot of experience because he was working with Roland Emmerich too, always as a set designer, but he never got the chance to really be like the boss. So, and he's also living here in Austria. And of course he has this huge fascination for science fiction, but he wanted to stay in Austria, so he couldn't really live that. So then there was this project and he went full in with all this American style approach. We can do this even if we have so little money. And
just borrow. We've been borrowing for years. It all works out. So.
But we also worked with a company called Aufgemöbelt, and these guys were just wizards. I don't know what they did. I mean, we were a little bit over budget, but in an okay way. Nobody's now ruined, I hope. But yeah, and and it was really a very important thing that we worked together that closely, and also that closely with the cinematographers, because there was no space for failure. So every idea that we were then actually building had to be perfect, because there was no chance of rebuilding anything. And so there was so much time spent in in the blueprinting and like in the designing and everything. So Müke unfortunately didn't really have that much space for me, so I was really involved a lot. And actually also the work with him also influenced the script, which was pretty cool too, because like there's like 3 areas on a space station, and we also built them exactly for the 3 characters, so that every character kind of had their space, their personal space. Maybe you don't even it's not outspoken, but you feel it underneath somehow. So even if some character goes into space with somebody else, it also brings some conflict even with it, without even, you know, telling you it's conflict now.
I love that. I mean, it's so subtle, but then also, yeah, you kind of get it, because there were definitely places where certain characters spent more of their time and seemed to kind of, and I guess, feel more at home at. And so that's a great, you know, it's a great little effect, and also a great use of maximizing your budget. Even though you're over budget, I think it was definitely worth it, because that set looked amazing. I mean, I was very shocked, you know, when we first got there.
Because in the beginning, you never know, is this going to look like super shitty? You have this budget, you have this guy who tells me, yeah, we can do this. And in the end, you think like, oh my God, hopefully this is not embarrassing. But we came to set, and, you know, my cinematographers, they're like so stoic, and nothing brings them out of their, how do you say that, minds? But the moment they went in there, they looked at me and were like, this is huge. And it was really so much bigger than you expected it. And I have been virtually in there so much, but getting there, everybody, I think the entire team, the first moment they got there, they felt like, okay, I have to give not only the 100%, I have to give even more than that, because this is massive.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a big undertaking, and I'm glad that everyone kind of got behind. I mean, you hear that with indie films. Like indie film, you have to have everyone give it their all, because, you know, there's not a ton of money, so everyone has to give plenty of extra effort and plenty of extra time, just because they love to do it.
Yeah, that was very difficult.
And then I also loved, you know, one of my pet peeves about movies is if the effects have too much CG in them, then it really pulls me out. And I think this had just the right amount. Like, obviously it's a space movie, so there has to be some CG, but, you know, the stuff that was in there was actually really, really well done. Like, it didn't bring me out at all. So, you know, what was that like? And I guess, you know, for you, Leni, who did the effects, and then for you, Julia, like, how much of it was CG, how much of it was practical, and what was that like, kind of working with both of those mediums when you were acting out there?
So I told my team, if I ever hear this sentence like, oh, we fix it in a post, this guy is fired. No, I mean, it was a joke, but I really didn't want to hear that at all, because everything you put into post maximizes the budget by, I don't know, it's like crazy. And I mean, I was very lucky, because my former boyfriend was also like a visual effects artist and supervisor as well. And I also worked a lot in VFX for short films too. So I had a very deep understanding. So even when I was writing it, I knew what can be done with what can't be done. So that was already, that was very, you know, in the planning. And also then again, it was a lot of time spent with the VFX artists. The company is called Ax Anima. It's an Austrian one. And like the supervisor, and also with my cinematographers. Actually, we met probably 3 to 4 times every week, and every shot was completely planned through. And also then later, when it was about, you know, to be done, I sat down next to the artists, and, you know, and I was really like working with them on the curves, and like how fast is, I don't know, the Vesta going, and how fast is the camera going. So there was a very big back and forth, and it was a very creative process. I loved it, actually. I mean, it's fun because everybody wants to give you this virtual reality shit where they have already built the 3D station, and they want to say, yeah, and you can go in there, blah, 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 and you can do everything. And I was like, no, stop it. I want to sit next to the artist. I want the curves. And, you know, I want it like this, I want it easy. So yeah, but again, it was, I think it was just possible because, you know, again, I was very involved in everything a lot. So there was no time for like trying crazy stuff. So you had, everything had to be like, how do you say, like Punktlandung, Julia?
On point.
It had to be on point.
Everything, yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And Julia, how much was it you know, I guess CG? I imagine some aspects of the space station were CG, but it did seem like there was a lot of practical effects in the space station proper. So, you know, how much of it was CG, or was it just kind of, you were just in the moment, you didn't really worry about if it was CG or if it was on screen, you were just kind of like doing your role?
I think I didn't worry at the time, because it's, I mean, my job is mostly about imagination. So I was just overwhelmed by if you have the space. I mean, some of the scenes were pretty exhausting in a way because the spacesuit is really hot, and if you perform gravity and we're doing the scenes again and again and again, and it's physically very exhausting. So I didn't have the time to think it through, but there were some moments, especially when I had to look above the Earth from space, and just the imagination of it, like looking at the planet and looking at how it gets destroyed, and it was very reduced, and I was in my suit and I could just hear myself breathing and seeing how Earth like is going down was like really, I just remember the moment when we shot it, and it was really, it hit me. Yeah. Just the imagination of it.
Yeah,
and don't forget, I brought you into the mood because I was crying, I was yelling in your ear. Yes. I was playing the guys that were dying, so it hurt me like screaming in agony. Yeah. I hope it didn't like put you off, it
gets you to some point when the director is yelling at you.
That's the good yelling story. Yeah, and whatever it was, it worked because the performance was really good. Now I know we have very limited time, so I'm going to switch. I call it the lightning round. They're just very lightweight questions about the film. I want to see how your personal experiences map to things in the film. You can feel free not to answer any of them. I won't be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable. The first question is, did either of you ever want to be an astronaut?
No, of course. I would still do it. If I didn't have those shitty eyes, I would totally do that.
Have either of you been in the military?
Nope.
Okay, but now you've played one, so that works.
Now she is.
This film had a fun drinking game in part of it. When was the last time that either of you played a drinking game?
I guess last weekend.
Saturday.
We do that all the
time. Your lives are way more fun than mine. And the last question, I don't know if they have it where you are. In America, we have something called astronaut ice cream, or like Dippin' Dots. It's just like ice cream that is little freeze-dried balls of ice cream. Have you ever had that?
Nah, that sounds delicious.
It is very delicious.
But I'm going to America. I'm going to America in July, and I'm gonna try it, and then
there we go.
I'll write a review about it.
Yeah, then you bring some over for me.
I don't know if it'll last, but you could definitely try. And it'll come full circle. That'll be the end of your astronaut journey. You'll be back on Earth, and you'll have astronaut ice cream. That works perfect. So the film is out on July 1st, 2022, coming to theaters and on demand. You are both out promoting this film. I imagine you both have other projects coming up. So if you can share what after people see Rubikon, what can they look for next from you? We'll start with Julia.
I did a comedy about mermaids.
Oh. And just the natural progression from this film.
Yes, it's from space to the sea. I go with the opposite parts. Yes.
Perfect. And Leni, what about you? Do you have anything coming up after this film?
I've been just funded for a script that I'm writing. It's an episodic approach about oh my god, it's so hard. It's the first time I'm telling that.
Breaking news.
It's also near future where scientists and mathematicians can actually really prove that there is no God. Oh. And it's about what society is going through then, even 10 years afterwards, and what that is doing. And it's kind of a little bit of a commentary on the whole COVID situation, and ugly truths that nobody wants to hear, and how people are dealing with their fears. Yeah.
That sounds fascinating. Both of those sound very interesting. I'm looking forward to both. But before you see those, you can check out Rubikon in theaters on July 1st, 2022. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
That was Leni Lauritsch and Julia Franz Richter talking about Rubikon, which is coming to theaters and on demand on July 1st, 2022. It's a tense sci-fi thriller with a great setting and some really interesting questions asked that are different from the questions that I just asked now. If you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.